ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Social Law Library annual report to the Membership Subscription Roundtable Group at its annual meeting in Kansas City, hosted by Ellen Bull. We're very grateful to be here, and we look forward to a very productive meeting. This program will follow up on the program that we did last year, where we said a librarian wears many hats. And we'll talk about some of the continuing problems that we've had during this past year, some of the successes and some of the failures. But we do look forward to sharing it with you. So, welcome, and I hope you enjoy this in the observing as much as we've enjoyed it in the making. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to take you on a tour of the Social Law Library and the events of the past year. This is going to be an overview. And away we go! Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that librarians now have to deal with is library electronics. And I want to tell you what you probably already know, and that is that it's a jungle out there. There are vendors and others just waiting for the opportunity to eat you. So you have to defend yourself. And it's a constant problem that we've never had to face before, because the systems are expensive, the options are several, and you can't be sure whether you've made the right choice. For instance, we have our online system. This system is designed to tie the two appellate courts, the Supreme Judicial Court and the Appeals Court, onto our substantive law online system. This system contains the reports of cases from both appellate courts and has been operational now for several months. The problem is that we had Verity design a system for us that ranked the cases by the number of times the search terms appeared. We find that the appellate court researchers, the judges and the clerks, want cases not by that ranking, but they want them available on a chronological basis. So we have to now go back to the drawing board and find another system which more adequately meets their needs. We have a new software system for our CD-ROM discs, which has proven very successful. One librarian described it as nearly perfect. So we're discussing with Meditech the possibility of using this same search engine to support our online system. We expect in the very near future to be able to make a decision on this. And we hope that this will meet the needs of the appellate court researchers. In addition to our online system, we have our CD-ROM towers. These towers will support 28 discs. both the commercial discs that we purchase as well as the discs that we produce for ourselves. We found, when we started to install the towers, that the cabling which we had installed about 2 years ago, which cost us between $60,000 and $70,000 to put out, would not support this kind of a network. So we had to recable. Needless to say, the waste of this money was very traumatic for me. I've got to say that a lot of the cost of cabling was running the cable and not the wire, running the conduit and drilling the holes. So that was saved. But the cost that went directly to the cabling was all lost. These are things that they never tell you about. They're risks, they're traps. It's just another animal ready to eat you. Speaking of our CD-ROM discs, last year I told you about the new space that we got down on the 9th floor from the Superior Court. That space has been renovated and it's operational and it's proven quite adequate for our needs. But the big problem with running a production facility is finding the people who can meet the needs of a very labor-intensive process which requires the scanning and the editing of cases and other materials. We thought that we could do a case in 40 hours, a volume in 40 hours. Now we find it's more like 80 or 90 hours, and the costs continue to escalate. We had hoped that our CD-ROM production facility would be a profit center. It hasn't been. It has, in fact, been a hemorrhage. But things are beginning to improve, and we hope within the next few years the hemorrhaging will cease, and we will at least be within a break-even. In addition to our online system for substantive law and our CD-ROM systems, we have our VTLS library system. This system is supported by this large Hewlett-Packard computer. And you think, of course, when you buy the system, that's the end of it. It's not. The training that goes with it, that they didn't tell you about, has been another drain that was anticipated. The cost of maintaining the system on an annual basis is very substantial. The development of the help screens, which we had to develop for our own patrons' needs, because this is the first time VTLS has had a law library to work with. In addition to all of this, of course, we've got to continue to process our materials and using the Library of Congress cataloging system, and we've had to barcode our materials. We have about 22,000 titles on the system now, and we're in the process of barcoding them so that the circulation system can soon be brought up. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and who would have thought that after 7 or 8 years, we're probably no more than halfway there. Anyway, there's a lot more to tell you about, which I can tell you at another time. But I want to again remind you that the animals out there are tigers. my new helmet, the uniform of the day. We've been faced with construction now for the last several months, and I expect that it will go on for the time that we remain in this building, which they now call the Tower Building. They are replacing the skin, that is, the bricks on the outside of the building, which have deteriorated over the 50 or so years that they've been there. This means that the contractors are outside knocking down bricks and putting up new bricks, new masonry, outside our window. The noise is distracting, and the smell of the waterproofing is very disruptive. Besides that, they are installing a fire safety system, which includes a sprinkler system, which of course is the one thing that every library wants, a sprinkler system. They are knocking holes in ceilings and running pipes. They've put in new fire doors. They've breached the ceiling in the library in perhaps as many as 100 places. The only saving feature, however, is that the Chief Justice told them that if they trashed his place, there would be real trouble. So they have tied his place and the library together as a single unit for this purpose. And as a result, we've been free of all the dirt and aggravation that other tenants in the building have had to deal with. We've just finished the renovation of our artworks, and in order to protect them from damage during this renovation project, we removed them to a archives and art storage building. So they'll be safe during the term of this work. We look forward to their return by the summer. You might think that in development you've got to be a good sport. Well, it's not really that at all. You've got to be tough, like a drill sergeant. And that isn't easy. This year, we've been planning a fundraiser of several $1 million to meet our anticipated needs into the new building. The trustees had been presented with a program for $7 million, $4 million of which was to serve to fund salaries, a chair for the librarian, and a chair for public services, and a chair for technical services. Well, they didn't think that would work. The problem with raising money for equipment is that in the legislation providing for the new building, the state is to provide moving expenses, equipment, and furnishings. And our plans for the new building include all of the high-tech materials and equipment that we can use for our continuing fundraising efforts. So we don't have a lot to talk about because we want the state to fund it. We wanted a professional fundraiser to come in to advise us. Well, the trustees think they know how to raise money. Many of them have been involved in fundraisers for other events. So we presented a fundraiser and a proposal. We have a recommendation from the president of the library and the head of the committee to adopt our proposal, which would cost around $40,000. And in my career at the Social Law Library, I have never had a president's proposal rejected or held in abeyance. But this time, it was contentious. And the trustees, really, before we lost the vote, we just tabled it. So this has been a very difficult year for our fundraising plans. In anticipation of the plan, we are beginning a new long-range plan. We had a retreat held at the Ritz one day in November, and all of the senior staff members got together, and we spent the day brainstorming, trying to find ideas that would sell. We're working on that now. Well, in any event, what we want is a lot of these. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to the Supreme Judicial Court Historical Society. This is an organization which the library established in 1990 to help the court celebrate its 300th anniversary. Feathers are always a problem. Even turkeys have problems with feathers. Well, this has been a very interesting experience for the library. As I say, we established the Historical Society to help the court celebrate its 300th anniversary, which it did in 1992 and in the spring of 1993. It has helped create a very cordial and close relationship with the Supreme Judicial Court, which has been very much improved since this operation began. The chairman of the Historical Society was the retired Chief Justice Edward F. Hennessy, and I've been the director since it was established. The first thing we did, of course, is to begin a fundraising program. The fundraising program was quite successful. We had a budget of and aimed for $500,000, and we came very close to it. I think $486,000. We have an agreement with the Bostonian Society, and that's the organization that has the museum at the Old State House, which is a building built in 1719, which housed the Old State House, where the court sat on occasion until a Bullfinch courthouse was built in the early part of the 19th century. We shared this fundraising, the results of this fundraising effort with the Bostonian Society, and in return they've set aside space in the Old State House as a continuing exhibit area for the Supreme Judicial Court Historical Society. We've just opened a new exhibit there, which focuses on Theophilus Parsons, a very well-known Chief Justice, who, by the way, was the man who established the Social Law Library in 1803. He was Chief Justice from 1806 to 1813 when he died. So we have an exhibit there. We have had exhibits, we've built exhibits and transported them around the Commonwealth in aid of this celebration and in support of our fundraising efforts and our membership efforts. The organization sponsored the history of the Supreme Judicial Court from 1692 to 1992, and this book was produced by Cornell University Press and is being sold through the auspices of the library. The copyright is owned by the Historical Society. The possibility of us acquiring any of the royalties from this are pretty remote, but we do have those rights. We also have been instrumental in the production of a videotape on the history of the court, which will be available to students in the junior high school and high school area. The Chief Justice retired, recently retired as chairman of the Historical Society, and has gone on to be chairman emeritus and honorary chairman. We have just recently installed a new chairman. He's very dynamic, and we have every reason to believe that our efforts to produce innovative programs and find the funding for this will be successful. One of the problems, of course, with trying to operate and manage a historical society such as the one we have here is that it trespasses on a lot of time from the development office. While the Historical Society expects to repay the library for all its out-of-pocket expenses, there's no way that we can recoup the time that we spent in the development of this society. But I believe that it's a program that has been well worth the effort. As I say, it has helped us in our relationship with the court. It has helped us broaden our horizons with respect to education from just the local Boston area to the Commonwealth statewide. We're very happy to report that it's been successful for these 4 years, and we hope that the future will be as successful. I'd like to discuss the budgeting process, because last year we were faced with a deficit approaching $500,000. We start the year with a budget that is approved by the trustees, and it's always a balanced budget. Now, as expenses increase, the only way to balance the budget is either drop programs or increase revenue. So we inevitably increase revenue, projected revenue, by anticipating optimistic returns. As the year progressed, we found that those projected optimistic income figures were not realistic. Our membership dues did not quite reach what we had anticipated. The overdue charges were down because, unfortunately, circulation of books was down. Sale of books did not reach expectations, and other revenue sources were inadequate to meet our needs. While traditionally we've been able to keep a pretty good handle on our expenses, this past year our expenses increased beyond our expectations. So the result was a deficit approaching $500,000. It was catastrophic. We did increase revenue dues for the forthcoming year, but that's too late to affect the results of fiscal 93. but we got lucky. This is my lucky hat. The legislature increased our appropriation by $200,000. $100,000 of that was credited to our fiscal 93. Unbeknownst to anybody, Haldor, the financial advisor to the library, sold some stocks and captured a substantial long-term capital gain of almost $300,000. So between the two new revenue sources, we managed to end the year with a very modest and manageable debt. We were lucky. I've been awarded 4 stars. Maria only has 2. And I hope that if I keep my nose clean and stay out of trouble, I'll be able to retire with 4 stars. Well, I'd like to talk about personnel issues. In the old days, you hired and you fired strictly on the merits, but not so today. Now you have to worry about age discrimination and race discrimination and religious discrimination, I guess even sex discrimination. You have to worry about disabilities. You have to worry about wage and hour issues. As a result, employment practices have become more and more complicated. And we've had to spend more and more time and more money on these issues. We've had to hire a part-time labor lawyer who's helped us do our sexual discrimination policy, our written policy. She's doing a policy on vacations. We've got several other policy issues, including the family leave policy, which are ready to be implemented. It's costly, it's time-consuming, and it's very frustrating. In order to recoup some of the costs that we've invested in the development of these plans and these programs, we've begun an educational program aimed at public library managers and trustees. We've had several programs this year, and they have been very well received. We're looking for foundation money to help us support these programs, and we'll keep you advised on the development of these issues. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to talk to you about collections, because of course collections is the heart and soul of the operation. It is the business part of the business of law librarianship. We have a continuous problem of collections. We have the problem of collecting for our Lexus, for our overdues, for our copy center charges, and at any one time there is about $300,000 out. Whenever the collections fall behind, the auditors are on my back. So we have had to add a person to work to enforce the collections. And he's done this quite effectively. The membership dues become due at the beginning of our fiscal year, and Joanne and the membership department is responsible for those collections. We projected after the dues increase that our membership dues would generate about $1.55 million. In the first 6 months, we've collected just under 1.5 million, so we're $50,000-$60,000 short. And we probably aren't going to collect much more of that, but we sure are trying. The other end, of course, is our state appropriation. That comes in sometime in August to September. The state appropriation is now up to $1,080,000. And we have a gap between the membership collections in the beginning of our fiscal year and the state appropriation at the end of the year. Well, in order to fill in this cash flow gap, we have arranged for a line of credit with the local bank, supported by our against the pledge of our securities. And we have been working a year to get this line of credit established. And there have been all kinds of little problems. As the banker says, some wars have been fought and won in less time than it took to get this line of credit established. Well, this year, we were down to our last dime to meet payroll in August, frantic to find the money when the state appropriation check came in. And all of a sudden, we're flush. What a relief. Well, in any event, as we've said before, collections are the heart of the business portion of running a law library. And if you don't get your collections in, you'll be pushing up daisies or some more refined flowers, perhaps like these. Hi. Sayonara.